Alright guys, a little bonus guide. Since we have a brand new truck, we're going to do some brand new guides. That's pretty cool. So yeah, so this will be open for Kentucky. So the same series week, not the week 13 series, but the open truck series. There's going to be free setups for week 13 in the link below. So that's awesome, and I'm going to be using exactly those sets. I'm not even going to change the steering ratio or anything for any of the sets. I'm just going to drive them as is. So for the qualifying lap, I'm going to do second lap because there just isn't enough grip on the first lap. I said the same thing for the last truck update video, or the last Truck Kentucky video, but if there was no grip then, there's no grip now because this truck has a lot less grip overall after the changes that they made to the chassis. So I'm just going to be trying to keep up enough speed, but I'm not going to push it too hard. You can just full throttle the entire 2 laps, or not full throttle, but run as hard as you can for the entire 2 laps. Your gauges will light up, but it shouldn't be an issue. So here I'm not actually going to run the wall. I'm going to really just set up wide and then try to get it onto the gas early. A little loose moment there, but we should be okay. Then we'll dip down onto the apron here. Not completely necessary, saves you a little bit though. We're going to arc a little bit more, we're going to get out of the gas a little bit, get to the bottom. You might be able to full throttle that, but it gets really sketchy coming off the corner here. So that's loose the entire way up, so you got to hold a really pretty wheel. Then 3 and 4, going to let out of the gas a little brake tap, bring it down to the bottom. Going to feel a little bit tight at first, but then once you start feeling the car come up, you can just full throttle to the wall. I probably could have throttled actually quite a bit earlier there, to be honest with you, but that's still a good lap. I think maybe about half a second earlier on the full throttle. Kentucky turn 4 is a little bit misleading with how wide it is. So when you're going for a full push lap like that, you really can get away with throttling a little earlier than you think. But, yep. So as you can see here, I'm barely backing off, 75%. 100% might be possible, but here's the thing. When it's so on the edge like this, it's not worth making 100% work just for the point of making it work. You got to keep your tires engaged the whole time, and I don't know if I'd be able to do that without sliding my rear tires. Maybe someone better than me can, but you see how I'm letting out of the gas at the beginning of the corner, right as we enter the banking. This helps me get down to the bottom, arc it a little bit. When I stomp that throttle, even from 80 to 100, like even from here to 100, it's going to kick out the rear tire if you hold the same amount of wheel. So I unload my wheel as I'm doing that because I'm anticipating the loose condition. And at this point, I'm like okay with starting to slide up the track. So just think about when you'd be okay starting to slide up the track, and that's essentially when you want to full throttle, because that loose moment that you'll get from full throttling is what's going to get you sliding up towards the wall with your little correction there. Then 3 and 4, I'd go out of the gas smoothly. So you see I go full to half and then let out, and then just the tiniest brake tap. If you get a perfect corner, I don't even know if you need to brake tap, but I just like that little brake tap because it helps me make my angle. You see how my angle wasn't really set up until I did that brake tap, and now I'm going straight down to the yellow line. In fact, my angle was so good that I probably could have just full throttled earlier. You really want to have your nose kind of pointing all the way down towards the yellow, because the car is going to be just a little less grip than you expect it to be with this truck. So you want to hold a little more angle towards the bottom than you think you'll need to, and that's what's going to set you up. Alright, so now we're going to change setups, and we're going to go here. So this is going to be the setup that's available for everyone. I'm using it just stock, and we'll talk about it a bit. I did some testing on the setup before, and like most of the setups, it'll start to get a little loose around lap 12 or 13. I usually just let it ride between 12 and 18, 12 and 20, something like that. Then the car kind of comes back to you, but it doesn't come back to you if you are sliding your tires and messing everything up in those laps where it's a little bit harder to handle. So it's going to be considerably slower than the qual setup, obviously. 1 and 2, we can make full throttle work for a little bit, and you probably will want to off of restarts for sure. It just takes a little bit more of an arc. I still go out of the throttle like this, like you see how it's the same thing as the qual set, right? The moment I step back to full throttle, it kicks out the rear. And so that was a good demonstration of what that is. And so you want to avoid that. The smoother you are on the throttle, the more throttle control you have, the less you'll kick out the rear. Because this car really does just like to travel neutrally. Like, you are doing the best on your tires when it's neither loose nor tight. Pretty in line with, I don't want to say the next gen because it really isn't, but it's kind of the same idea in terms of tire wear. With the ARCA car, what I preach a lot about, what I'm specialized in, is forcing a car on the right rear when it's way too on the right front. But this, the car can get on the right rear all right, but you don't want it to be on there because, or else it'll just heat that up. So what I'm just looking for is entering my corners a little bit easier than I might need to, but not too easy. And then just being smooth on the throttle, letting the car come up the track and trying to keep the car neutral the whole way. That's how you're gonna be able to save your tires here. I have seen some people making the top work here after a certain amount of time in the long run. That makes sense with how these cars handle. We'll go over the top in a couple laps here. It's going to be definitely slower at this point of the run. But you can just see letting out of the gas before the banking starts, just holding it, and then going full throttle when you're able to just let your car start to slide up the track, because you don't want to force any wheel that'll make your rear kick out. Little brake tap. Probably could have tapped more because I missed the bottom, but with a car that doesn't have as much grip on entry, you don't want to force it anywhere, because when you start forcing it places, that's when you get a ton of tire wear, it starts sliding, four-wheel sliding, and that's not good for anything. Coming down to the bottom easier, went full throttle really early there because I was just able to just map the trajectory of the car, just let it slide up the whole time. A little earlier entry here, let's get to the bottom. That's a lot better, and you see we can early throttle up. It'll just go straight towards the wall, but there's a lot of natural rear rotation that you can kind of lean on a little bit. You can't lean on it as much as like the ARCA car, but you can lean on it just a little bit, especially with this setup. I was trying some looser setups earlier today, and I just could not lean on it at all. A lot tougher. Maybe the looser setups were in theory faster, but it's just super difficult to drive. And one mistake and you just torch your tires, and then it's a moot point because you don't have the tire temps, no matter how good your setup is. So I like this being a little bit tighter. But let's talk about running the top, right? So 1 and 2 should be the easier corner to run the top in. You can see it's not particularly fast right now, but it might be fast like 25, 30 laps into the run. 3 and 4 is going to be harder too, because of the tighter corner entry. See how it just slides up towards the wall like that? So yeah, I would recommend staying bottom. I think a lot of people will go to the top eventually, but that's just not a play at the beginning. And when you go to the top, it should still feel like neutral handling. That's the moral of the story with all of this. With this truck, no matter where you are on the track, you want it to just feel neutral in handling. You don't want it tight, you don't want it loose. So you gotta do what you gotta do for that. I think if the top is gonna work, it'll work in 1 and 2. This 3 and 4 is just, you can get on the throttle so early because of the angle of the exit where it's a little bit wider than you think. You just don't need the top at that point. So just work on your corner entries, setting up that. I don't know why I just went all the way up again. I had it in my mind. But I guess we can make the middle work. It's not that bad. So we'll go in and check this. The goal is to have the rears and the fronts be on the same tire wear. I'm guessing the rears are going to be a little bit more, just because I feel the car leaning on the right rear more than the right front. Like this last lap here. Well, you can see it's pretty grounded. It's an easy to drive setup if you have the line correct. You can loosen it up maybe a little bit more speed, but like I said, I find that difficult for little reason. because I can get on the throttle at this point whenever I want to still. Okay, let's check the tires here. But yeah, it's different to the trucks, definitely. You're not going to be full throttling for 20 laps with like a little tiny lift maybe in the entry of 3. It's going to take a little bit of actual throttle control. 95, 92, so yeah, definitely more on the right rear. I would like to get that a little bit closer, but that feels like any tighter you get, you're going to start limiting yourself on the exit of 2, especially, or maybe even the exit of 4, even though it's so wide. But it still turns good. I like how the set feels. It'll transition a little bit looser after that lap 12, but then it'll kind of settle back in around the lap 20. All right, thank you all for watching. Hope you have a wonderful day, and I hope to see you all on the track.